Good evening and welcome to the Cedar Falls School District Board of Education meeting on this Monday, February 10th. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We will begin by reviewing the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Orvis is first. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to public comment. We have public comment this evening from Mr. Wyckoff.
Good evening and thank you, Board of Education and members. Larry Wyckoff, 4241 East Park Road, from in the best city in the state, Cedar Falls, Iowa. 2 weeks ago, I watched Channel 15 with complete amazement that the planners want 4 years to build a new high school. And one of your participants questioned that. On what planet, with John Deere excavators, bulldozers, and backhoes, is it even conceivable to take 4 years? Friends tell me that Sioux City, an equal size, took $44 million less to build their school. Why can't the planners copy plans from other schools already built to get a jump on the move to make this project complete? With all the trips you've made to examine other completed buildings, why not copy and paste into Cedar Falls landscape plans? If nothing else, add an an incentive clause into the contract to get the project done sooner. Finally, on 3 March, I'm urging people to vote no on the 1-cent option tax due to all the schools that have already been built, and we don't need any more, so why do we need another 1% option tax? I've shown how to save $44 million and reduce our taxes by 1% for all of Black Hawk County. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wyckoff. We'll now move to our Student Board Representative, Rachel.
So this is an exciting time in Student Senate. So right now we are focusing on a Valentine's Day bake sale in the morning, so it'll be this Friday. Bake sales are always a very effective way to raise money. We have hungry teenagers, and so it'll be a fun time. And then overall, we as Student Senate are just kind of focusing on our next big event, which is going to be the Do Better, Be Better 5K, which is still a ways away. It's going to be on April 11th, so I'll talk more about that when that gets a little closer. But just what we're doing right now, we're doing a lot of planning for that. And then overall, kind of taking a little bit of decreasing the intensity of involvement in Student Senate, because right now a lot of our students are involved in other things. And I know, for example, senior leadership, we are going all out with senior video and planning things. And then I know with junior leadership, they have to plan prom, which is a lot of pressure on them because it better be awesome. And so we have those 2 events, and that's what we're focusing on right now.
Very good. Any questions?
Awesome, thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you very much. Moving to Janelle.
Good evening. Bring up our communications update real quick. Some really exciting news we had last week up at the high school. Aaliyah Tournier, she was actually presented with a check from U.S. Cellular for $10,000. She was picked as one of U.S. Cellular's 3 winners for the first phase of the Future of Good program. She was nominated as someone that makes an impact in their community, and she was selected as a winner. And she's also a basketball student manager for the boys basketball team, and was, as you can tell in this photo, completely surprised by the presentation given to her at halftime. Coach Schultz actually kept the guys out on the court so they could do the presentation, or they could see the presentation of her as a winner and giving her the check. She actually started this program when she was 13. It's called Furries for Fosters, and she collects stuffed animals and blankets for foster kids She's donated hundreds of blankets to the Allen Hospital Child Protection Center, local DHS offices, and a couple other partnerships she has in the community. So she's going to use the money for the nonprofit that she's set up for additional support, and then to build a website, and then use some other technology for her nonprofit. So a big congratulations to her, and a special thanks to US Cellular for coming to the game and making it such a great event and surprise to her, and that's her with her family. Also to mention the March 3rd revenue purpose statement vote real quick. This is set for March 3rd. It's to approve the 1 cent sales tax revenue purpose statement that's previously been approved by our district, and this is just an extension of that. This is required by the Iowa legislature again. Again, it's not additional funding or a tax increase. It's just allows the district to spend the funds that are allowed by Iowa law. The election office is actually utilizing vote centers again for this vote. So those are the 5 locations where you will be able to vote on March 3rd. They'll be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. St. John Lutheran Church, Bethlehem Lutheran Church, Church of Christ, Cedar Heights Community Presbyterian Church, and then Trinity Bible Church as well. I believe these are similar to the vote centers that were utilized in the last school bond vote last summer. So that seemed to work well for the election office, so they've decided to do that again. And absentee ballots are now ready at the county election office, so you can go in person to vote at any time between now and March 3rd. And you can also send in any requests to receive an absentee ballot in the mail. There's additional information that you can download the request form on the website listed up there. We have a new Parent University episode that was a big thanks to Channel 15 here and Denny Bowman and his staff for helping us put this together, and it's an update on the CF CAPS program. You'll be maybe surprised to know it's 3 years that CF CAPS has been here in the Cedar Falls School District. So there's lots of great information that Mr. Weekman shared. There's actually a student associate that was part of the murder mystery event with the Black Hawk Hotel that they talk about in that Parent University episode. Sasha, did you have a question? I didn't want to.
Sorry.
I feel like I
sorry.
kept talking fast.
So before
maybe had a
you moved
question.
on, I just wanted to make sure that the information about the absentee ballot and the vote is all up on our website, yes?
It is all up on our website. Yep, you can actually just download the PDF and then print it at home to then send into the election office to request the absentee ballot be sent back to you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
And then a couple other things. We'll continue updating information on the website with high school information. So that's the location you can go with that information. Also wanted to make sure to mention again, you can nominate a teacher for the Gold Star Teacher Award, and those nominations they'll take until February 20th. So we encourage everyone to nominate a teacher for a Gold Star, and then also to receive notifications from us anytime in regards to weather notifications and announcements. You can just text yes to that number, 87569, and then you'll be on our list to receive those notifications. That's where you can follow us along anywhere. Any questions?
So if our community did not vote in favor of, on March 3rd, would our taxes go down? And maybe that's a question maybe for you or for Andy.
I'm happy to answer that, but I may be wrong. No.
And
No,
Jeff,
yeah,
can I
go
It will
Go
not,
ahead.
yeah.
can I add a piece to that question? Would it mean that it is a referendum on the 1% sales tax? Or is it a question on the purpose statement for the sales tax?
So yes and yes. We've talked through this now, I think about 3 different months. This is a statement. Every district in the state of Iowa has to ask their community to approve a revenue purpose statement for all the dollars that are collected at the state level for the 1 cent sales tax that is statewide. And then they have those dollars go out to districts. The legislature extended out the 1 cent sales tax, so it's dollars that are already going to be generated at the state level. They allocate them out to districts. Every district has to ask their community to allow us to receive those dollars and then to spend those in legally authorized ways that are very specified in Iowa code. So it's kind of hard to explain, but it's dollars that have already been approved at the legislative level. They're going to be doled out to districts. We have to say we're going to use those dollars in authorized ways by Iowa code. If we say no, then other districts will get those dollars and we won't get those dollars to be able to spend on roofing needs and technology needs and infrastructure needs that we have as a district that will be over the course of the next, roughly 30-some years through 2051. So it's not an increase in local taxes. It's not an increase in 1 cent or sales tax. It's continuing the 1 cent sales tax that's been in place in Iowa since 2009.
Yeah, and I was going to mention too that Waterloo Schools is doing theirs at the same time as well, and some other districts surrounding us have already did in November. I think with elections they had done those previously, so it'll be happening more frequently as well. But
And could we just get a quick reminder of all the things in our district we have been able to support and fund with that 1 cent sales tax money?
Yeah, that's actually on our website too. And it goes through, one of the first projects that we did with 1 cent sales tax dollars was Cedar Heights. So we've done Cedar Heights, Hanson, some of Orchard Hill, some of North Cedar, Pete and Holmes Junior High, some of Aldrich with some of the work that was done there. So the Southdale, there's been an extensive amount of work that's been done with the 1 cent sales tax revenue. And again, it's dollars allocated from the state level through the 1 cent sales tax in very specific authorized ways that we can expend those dollars for use of buildings and upgrades of infrastructure.
And would we have been able to do all of those projects if the legislature and all of the citizens of Iowa at some point who passed this statewide had not made this what am I trying to say?
Priority.
A priority for our state and for our students.
No, and the reason it went statewide in 2009 really is because every single county approved a 1 cent sales tax for school infrastructure needs. And once that was approved statewide, the legislature said this makes sense to make it uniform across our state for all 99 counties, because every county approved this for school infrastructure at that time. The legislature said last legislative session, this makes sense to continue to extend out through 2051 because it makes a difference for students in their learning.
Thank you for that clarification.
And Andy, it's disseminated based on a per pupil head count, right? For districts.
It is, correct.
So it supports school districts, whether you're small, medium, or large.
Correct, yep.
Would I be oversimplifying this to say that if it is voted no, the question comes down to, do we want the money or don't we want the money? Is that an oversimplification of it?
Yeah, it's just for us to say we are going to receive the money and spend it in authorized ways outlined by Iowa code.
And there's no timeline on the expenditures of those dollars. It's when there's a need that arises.
Correct, yep. And as we've said, some of those funds go to offset the cost of the new high school. As we talked about that through the whole process with the bond, it was about a 60-40 split that the taxpayers, we asked them for approval of $69.9 million for the new high school, with roughly about $43 million coming from 1 cent sales tax revenues.
Great questions. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move along in the agenda to the approval of the 2020 roofing projects bid. Is there a motion?
We do have a short presentation, if that's okay.
Oh, sure, we can do it either way.
Okay, sorry. Just to kind of go through the short presentation here. Last time we set or 2 meetings ago, we set the public hearing. We had the public hearing. This is for the then finalized summer roof projects. This is part of our 10-year physical plant and equipment levy expenditures. As you can, with the next slide, we have 3 sections that we're replacing, or at least in 3 buildings. We have some work at Holmes Junior High, some work at Cedar Heights Elementary, as well as 2 sections at North Cedar Elementary that are part of some of the original work roughly 30 years ago at North Cedar. Next slide. This just details each of those locations and where they're at here at Holmes, at, next slide, Cedar Heights, which is the cafeteria / kitchen area, and then North Cedar, which are 2 areas that, again, part of it to the west side and part of it to the far east side of the building. Very excited, if you go to the next slide, that we had multiple bidders, which is always exciting. There was an anticipated cost of $281,928 to replace these, as well as to re-insulate these roofs to ensure that we are being efficient and effective with the work that's going on. We do recommend that the low bid be given to Black Hawk Roofing Company here in Cedar Falls. They came in roughly a little over $7,000 under our estimate, which is very exciting to know that that is the case. We have worked with Black Hawk Roofing in the past and know that they do tremendous work, and certainly excited that this is a low bid underneath our estimation for the work to be done.
Very good. Do we have questions? So on these, I guess, just kind of, why are we replacing these roofs?
Well, this is part of our preventative maintenance plan. So we do multiple different things. We have our 10-year PEPAL plan, but within our 10-year PEPAL plan, we have a 10-year roof cycle plan for preventative maintenance, plus carpet replacement and other things built into that. So when we go through and we review our roofs annually, we look for A, age of the roof, B, potential leaking and other aspects of failure of the roofs when they cycle out of some of their life expectancy or warranty. These three roofs are all approximately 30 years of age or a little older, and we know that based on A, either their durability and or just their life cycle, that it's time to replace these sections of roof. The one at Cedar Heights is a little bit newer, but due to the slope and the slant, I think it was Daryl that talked about that 2 meetings ago, it's a shingle asphalt roof that just has not performed the way that was expected when that was installed. I think now close to 25 years ago that this was something that needs to replace, and we're replacing it with much more modern, more efficient components that we think are going to last much longer and has a 30-year warranty on it.
So these, and that was going to be a follow-up question. So I assume it's a membrane roof is what all these are. Sorry, that's a more technical question, but it all has it's going to have a 30-year warranty.
Yeah, that's what the replacements have, correct?
Okay, all right, very good. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Cedar Falls Community School District Board of Education approve the 2020 roof improvement bid of $274,535 from Blackhawk Roofing Company, based here in Cedar Falls, Iowa.
Thank you, Dr. Heisterkamp. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Hines. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Moving on to the North Cedar Playground project bid. I assume we want a little presentation on this as well?
We do, yeah. So again, this is another opportunity to first off, be very appreciative of our community, but also I think an opportunity to thank one of our community businesses. This is the work that we've been talking about. It's part of our 10-year physical plant and equipment levy process as well. We've had some groundwater challenges at the North Cedar Elementary playground area where there has been the water table has been high enough that there's been some areas of the playground that are unusable for multiple months, sometimes even multiple years over the course of the last 5 to 6 years. As we've talked about now, several different meetings, this is looking at the North Cedar Playground. This is kind of hard to see, but the building is on the upper left-hand area. On the right-hand side is some of the playground areas. There's a walking track that's been severely waterlogged for really 4 out of the last 6 years. There's some other playground areas there. The process of this project was to bring in some fill to be able to level this area out to make sure it's above the water table so we have access not only for students, staff, but the neighborhood, but also to provide a safer environment that's much more friendly for those students and neighbors to play on. The next slide goes through a couple different drawings and areas. Per city code, per some of the DNR requirements, we know that the fill comes in from the same area. It's used to be able to fill the area as well as replace the track and the baseball diamond. This also shows where we're going to have some draining into the south to be able to take some of the water from the road, from the site, from other locations to make sure that it's pulled away from the site much more efficiently and effectively than it currently is. Next slide shows when we had this in our board packet a couple meetings ago, each of these little green areas have numbers, and this just shows where each of the areas are filled. Some of the areas have 3, some of the areas have 6 inches in it, just to be able to show that being very mindful on what this looks like as it's completed with the actual fill that's necessary. Next slide. then goes into some of the final drawings of what the playground, because that has to be removed and then reinstalled, which was part of the building project, but is also part of the work, just as we're looking at this holistically, to add in ADA compliance as well as the right slope for stairways and accesses down to the playground area. The next slide then goes into the overall bidding process. And we had a number of bidders that showed interest in this. We knew that the cost, or at least the estimate for this, was roughly about $400,000. But we also were optimistic that we would have some of our community partners provide what is really kind of donations to the district through this process. And very, very excited, and really a heartfelt thank you to Benton Sand and Gravel. You can see their bid came in roughly about 62% of the estimate, because the largest components of their bid is donations with their labor, with their fill, with some other things, not only with their partnership with the district, but certainly their affinity for North Cedar and their work with North Cedar Elementary. So very excited to see that as a bid at $252,215.95 compared to what the estimate was for this work. Certainly this is going to be a benefit not only to that neighborhood, to the school district, but our entire community when it's all completed and done.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions or comments about that? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion?
I move that the Cedar Falls Community School District Board of Education approve the North Cedar Elementary Grading Improvement Project bid from Benton's Sand and Gravel Incorporated of Cedar Falls, Iowa, in the amount of $252,215.95.
Thank you, Mr. Gruber. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Leeper. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, moving on to the calendar.
Yeah, just a couple different items. February 24th, our next board meeting, we have the teacher librarians here for the information report. March 9th board meeting will be the preliminary budget.
Calendar, school calendar.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I jumped ahead.
We want to hear about those things as well?
I already crossed it off my list, so I apologize. I jumped ahead, marked the wrong thing off. Yes, so this is to set the public hearing on the school calendar. Per Iowa code, we are required each year to set a public hearing for the school calendar. And in your packet, you'll see the school calendar. It's very similar to this year's calendar. The Iowa legislature 3 years ago really kind of narrowed down when we can start, when and where breaks typically can happen within the school calendar. So you'll see what the proposed school calendar as we set the public hearing, and we'll have this for the public hearing next meeting. A start date of August 24th, which is the earliest date that we can start per, again, the Iowa legislative changes 3 years ago. A couple of the notable changes. We've heard from a lot of our staff and feedback from staff that the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, that's nice to be able to look at having that off. We typically had PD days on that day, so you'll see November 25th, that Wednesday would be a no school day, no staff day, which is something that we've had multiple conversations about. Looking at moving that PD day then to the Monday after winter break on January 4th, that allows us then to kind of transition into professional development, have a lessened school day for staff and students that whole week, which makes sense. And then that allows us to end on June 1st tentatively with potentially inclement weather days, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of June.
Very good. Questions?
I did have a question, because that June 1st is the day right after we would come back from Memorial Day. So 2 questions. One is, say we did not have any snow days. Would it be possible to have made up that time during the year that we can not have to come back on that Tuesday?
Yes, so we did that last year where we have so many, per Iowa code, you have to have 1,080 hours within your calendar year. We have roughly about 30 hours above that with the number of days that we attend with the hours that we have. So there are some banked hours. We do that because of late starts, early dismissals. That way you don't have to make up that time necessarily, say, hour for hour. So if all of a sudden we got to the end of the year next year and it did not look like we were going to have inclement days, we could turn that into a professional development day. We could do some other things. Would be maybe be a non-student contact time. So there's some options, certainly. We do this with a knowledge that, or a thought that there more than likely will be some inclement weather days. You just never know. But if that's the case and there is not any, then we have some flexibility.
And then also, what is the last day for seniors for next year?
So graduation would be on the the weekend after Memorial. Well, it would be Memorial Weekend. Excuse me.
And I know we always do it that weekend, but are seniors getting out that late that we?
No, so we would have to go and back map that, but by Iowa code, seniors can't get out more than 5 days prior to all other students per the calendar. So that is delineated in Iowa code. So more than likely, we would be looking at probably the Wednesday or Tuesday of the prior week as far as when their last days would be. But that's going to be kind of working with the high school on those specific dates when that works.
Okay.
So
Because
I'm gonna
somebody
do it.
might have somebody graduating, so.
Well, I mean, and I'm not a person who loves having it on Memorial Day, so that's fine. I mean, it is what we do, but I just wondered, it seemed like it seemed to me they got out earlier than that normally, and maybe that's not the case, because I haven't had
think
a.
they usually have, don't we usually have a Friday rehearsal? But they've been out that whole week.
Memorial Weekend is the latest it can possibly be with how it falls on the calendar being the 31st of May. So this is once every 7-year cycle where it just happens to fall on this date based on the calendar rotation.
So there's no way it could be the weekend before. I mean, I just didn't know if we always did it on Memorial Day weekend, just because
Yeah,
that's what we do in Cedar Falls, or if it's because it.
No, we've not had it on Memorial Weekend the last 3, I believe, graduation ceremonies, mainly because when they moved up the calendar early start date, it kind of pushes those calendar back. But this year, because of the 5 days that seniors can't be released earlier than all other students, it pushes it to Memorial Weekend with the date that it fell on this year.
Okay.
So using an opposite premise that was the foundation of that question, if we had 5 snow days, does that endanger with the 5 days gap? So everybody can count on that being graduation day.
Yes, yeah, actually, and again, so it's typically, unless it's really unique or something like last year where we actually added time to the school day, typically seniors will not be required to make up those missed days due to inclement weather.
So I know one student who's hoping for a whole bunch next year, but.
Yes. I get lobbied frequently.
Wonderful. All right, great questions. Seeing none, can I get a motion?
That would be me. I move that the Cedar Falls Community School District Board of Education approve February 24th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. as the date and time to hold a public hearing for the 2020-2021 school calendar.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Gruber, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, moving on to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, so I apologize for that. Just a couple different items. February 24th, again, informational report for teacher librarians. March 9th, board meeting, preliminary budget. Just to put on everybody's radar as well, April 27th is a scheduled board meeting, but there won't be a board meeting that night. There are just several conflicts that are occurring with different CAPS innovation celebrations, other events and activities. So that is, as we plan ahead, a non-meeting night. And again, we just know that over the course of the next multiple weeks, there's a lot of student and school activities, and we just encourage everybody to go out and about and support our students.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments from board members?
I have, just would like to remind everyone watching at home that this is a pretty critical week in terms of funding for schools in the Iowa legislature. So the supplemental state aid is going through this week, Friday, February 14th, this Friday is the deadline that they've given themselves for deciding on what that supplemental state aid is going to be. And right now, in the House, they've passed through the Education Committee and House Appropriation a rate of 2.5%, which is higher than we've had in the last several years. Not quite what we need to bring us up to speed in terms of the cost of doing business, but we'll take it, and we'd like to encourage them to get that through as quickly as possible, approve it. The Senate has put forward through their Senate Education Committee a rate of 2.1%, which we'd like to see obviously get up to that 2.5% threshold. So contact your legislators and just let them know that we hope that they move on this quickly and get it done by this Friday deadline at that 2.5% rate. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Sasha, just a question on that. The governor did recommend 2.5% as well.
She did.
And is it still the case where Iowa code really does state that the legislature is supposed to set school funding for 2 years, and yet they only set it for 1 year these past several years? Is that not accurate?
So they changed that last year, where they always were required to set it 1 year in advance. They now moved it to 30 days after the governor's recommendation. That is why the deadline is February 14th, or 13th, excuse me, to be able to have that completed. So it kind of challenges districts because we're trying to figure out budgets when we don't know what our funding will be for next school year, as we look to make plans and be able to go through processes that are important for us to forward think and plan appropriately.
So they used to have it for 2 years to give schools the opportunity to plan. So just again, to remind people, our funding is always a year behind.
Correct.
And now we're trying to make a budget when we always don't necessarily have the information we need to budget accordingly for the upcoming year.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
I am serving as our board rep for the Cedar Falls Schools Foundation, and I am just pleased to announce that, remind folks that on April 1st will be the next Future of Education breakfast. And while I'm new to this position and representation, is there someone that could maybe give a quick, short description of the Future of Education breakfast?
Well, I would be happy to give
Thank you, Susan.
a description. It is an event that's held out at Beaver Hills that has strictly for business organizations, entities within the Cedar Valley. Typically, we get some speaker in education. I don't know if that has been selected this year. Past speakers have been the president of Hawkeye, Dr. Allen. We've had, I think Dr. Ben Allen probably was our initial speaker several years ago. Dr. Nook has been. So it's a great opportunity to hear what is going on in education in the state of Iowa. Typically, Dr. Petit may give a little brief overview as well, and we highlight all the wonderful things that go on in the district.
And on behalf of the foundation, I'll be emailing all of you just a brief description about sponsorships as well. Some really good information.
And you can
so if
just
people-
go straight online,
Thank you.
Mr. Hassman, to the donate button.
And if that's wonderful, and if they just want to, if people want to attend the breakfast, how do they go about signing up for the breakfast? Is that
I would recommend emailing the executive director about that.
Okay.
Which I think is foundation@cfschools.org.
Okay.
You can actually register online. There's an online registration under the foundation page that you can click to register for the breakfast.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Very good. So a question that was also brought up in public comment, and I saw that it was a question to the editor or to the courier as well, was just the timeline that we're on for school construction for the new, so kind of addressing this longer time frame that we have for construction. I think it was the same question that was in the courier. So why is it taking? Why between bond and high school opening is it 4 years?
Well, I think multiple reasons, and I know this has been kind of an ongoing dialogue. First, it's a huge building. You know, when you start looking at 300,000 square foot of a structure, it's very large. Two, I think, you know, we have one chance over the next 70 years to do this right. We're trying to get a lot of input from a lot of people through the process of design development to make sure that we're mindful of what it looks like, to get a lot of research, to get people to be able to have a lot of eyes on the project. So when we do open the building, it's something people can say it's really spectacular and done appropriately. We also know that just of the land that's been purchased, the timing of taking possession and getting access to that site is just something that doesn't happen instantaneously. We can actually start turning dirt on the site. I think it's December 18th, 2020 is the first time, which is not conducive with the weather. So obviously dirt will start turning sometime in the spring of 2021. And then you start looking at all the coordination of utilities and access to make sure that growth to the west of the site, which is already occurring, is done with a very mindful approach for how access, utilities, roads, and other different amenities to the site are done appropriately so they don't have to be redone 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So it's something that we all want to be able to snap the fingers, to be able to get done now, especially staff and students at the high school. But we also know to be done right, it just takes time. There are also some just different nuances with how the site lays out, the geographic slope of the site. You just can't say we're going to take this plan from another district and just put it on the site. Every site has different access points, different utility access, different drainage, different needs that you have to go through the process to make it sure it's done right.
And Andy, I would also say what I've appreciated about our district is we are not just following the industrial model of education anymore, more so even than the site. We are talking about what is best for our students in terms of where we are as a district, in terms of CAPS, in terms of interdisciplinary learning, cross-curricular learning. So to just act like education should be a one-size-fits-all for every student, that goes against everything we're doing as a district. We are all about every student, every skill. So I think that is not remotely applicable to what we're doing here as a district, so.
There's a lot of new buildings that are out there that if you picked up and put here, we would be sorely disappointed. Even though it might be a new building, it would not be modern educational frameworks that we know are important.
I would assume there's a logistics question too at the same time. I mean, there's no point in opening the building in March, right? I mean,
Yep.
You have to open in August when it's appropriate to move a school into that location.
Yeah, and there's multiple logistics, and that's where it gets really interesting. This is going to be roughly 4 Aldrich Elementaries to be done in the same time frame, a little bit longer than what Aldrich Elementary was. So we're talking about 4 times the amount of capital being spent on a monthly basis, 4 times the amount of mobilization of people at the same time as far as what that site did. Plus, you look at when this is tentatively scheduled to be done, it gives us multiple months to be able to move in, to be able to have maybe even some professional development happen within those spaces, so you don't have to try to replicate that in other spaces. Allows us to have the furniture and use the technology and have other aspects that back up that time frame. Plus, knock on wood, inadvertently, if there's some poor winter weather or some other issues that arise, we have some flexibility within that end time frame to make sure that there's plenty of time to be open and ready once that August time frame of school start begins.
Great question. Yep.
While I appreciate the reference to Sioux City made earlier, the last 5 or 6 schools that Sioux City District built were all elementary schools, which would not really be consistent or conducive to a high school. Prior to that, the 3 middle schools were built in 2002, 2003, and prior to that, the high schools were built in 1972. So,
As a former administrator, you would know. So.
Yes.
there were new science rooms put in the high schools in 2007, 8.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
And I just have one comment. I mean, with everything we've talked about tonight, Rachel was here talking about our Do Better, Be Better run. We talked about our CAPS partnership, which is a partnership between our business and community. Aaliyah with the Future of Good, and our community members, really showing their interest and investment in our facilities by coming up with that bid for our North Cedar Playground. For those community members that really have a vested interest in this amazing city of ours, I do think there are positive and constructive ways for you to get involved, and I really encourage you to seek those out, because there's lots of opportunities to be a part of the good we're doing in the district. So I encourage you, if you are really interested in what's happening in the district, I hope you're looking for those opportunities, because they're out there, and we're happy to partner with you on those.
Thank you. Any other final comments, questions? All right. Well, after we adjourn for this evening, our board will be going into an exempt session. We're coming into the season of working with our various unions that represent our staff and our teachers. So just from a transparency standpoint, let everybody know that that's what we're doing. It's an exempt session per Iowa law. As we just go into that, not trying to hold anything secret, but just that we can give our staff direction from the board as they enter those discussions, and certainly want to emphasize on behalf of the board that we appreciate each and every member of our staff and teachers for all that they do. It's a hard time, and our hands are always tied based on what we can do, based on what the legislature provides to our district, but we want to make sure that we do emphasize that we appreciate each and every staff and teacher and administrator that's within our district. So with that, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Ms. Hines, adjourn. Second?
Second.
Second. Ms. Leeper. All those in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned.